Hi, and welcome to FrazlCast. Climb aboard the Gnome Train.
Chugga, 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 chugga.
Please make sure to keep your limbs and experimental instruments inside the train at all times. And now, on with the show.
A podcast by a Blizzard fan gnome about World of Warcraft and geeky stuff. I promise you, they do talk about the World of Warcraft. They just go off the rails sometimes.
So I'm Frazley, and I'm joined by Mr. Ali, Sniperfrog / Brandon for their first of many podcast guest appearances across the Blizsphere. Next week, they'll have been on like 25 podcasts.
I don't know about that.
Hey, you never know. We'll see. Yeah, on this episode, we will get to know Brandon better. I used my sources to dig up some awesome information on this new podcast guest. Hopefully one day they start a podcast. It's happened before. But I do know one thing, though. After this show, I know we will be friends.
Definitely.
Before we get into the main topic, Epicinsanity, what time is it?
It's time to go around the table.
Great idea. So what have you been up to recently?
Work, mostly. Like I said earlier, I'm working 55 to 60 hours a week, usually six days out of the week. But the money's good, and it helps support the family, so I'm happy with it.
That was good.
Try to game as often as I can. I managed to unlock Battle for Azeroth Pathfinder 2
Nice.
2 days ago now. Still haven't done any of those other meta achievements, like the one in Nazjatar where you get to get the side walking crab. I really want that mount.
Ooh, yeah.
And then last weekend, Ali and I went to Breckenridge and to kind of celebrate the 4th and just have a nice one weekend getaway. And that was wonderful.
Time away is always nice, and it's always nice to share it with a loved one.
Yes, I unlocked Pathfinder before Ali did, but to be fair, she's working on her wonderful show.
I can relate. Shows definitely take gaming time, and that's the curse of being a content creator. Your game time goes. But awesome job on the Pathfinder. That is quite an achievement.
I really missed flying. You don't realize how much you actually miss it until you don't have it, and then you get it back, and it's like, I can fly.
Yeah, I remember like walking into BFA, I tried to fly somewhere, like, oh, yeah. Then I was in Darkshore and Arathi. I keep forgetting that I can fly there because they're new zones.
My favorite was back in Legion. I was playing a subtlety rogue, and on the artifact weapon you get, subtlety rogues have an ability called cat-like grace, and that means you take no falling damage. So when we first get into Battle for Azeroth and all that stuff's been taken away, I'm running around and I'll go off the edge of a cliff expecting to fly, and then I fall, and I'm like, oh, I should be fine. I have cat-like reflexes. And then I die.
Did you ever die on the places where you couldn't get your corpse back from?
Quite a few times. I have a couple hours of resurrection sickness.
I did learn at least they changed it so resurrection sickness, you can be logged out, so that was good. So I switch characters sometimes or do something else.
I have noticed that. That's definitely a happy change.
Yeah. I remember dying one time in High Mountain, and my friend was like, how did you die there? I said, no clue.
Well, see, I have a funny story about the Mecha Gnome Island, where I'm currently doing the quest where you get the gnome spider, the walker mount.
Yeah.
There's one where you have to test it out. Well, you can't stop, but it also doesn't swim. So I ended up going off the side of the island and falling all the way to the bottom of the seafloor. And there's no way to get back onto the island. So I just kind of ran around until I basically drowned to death.
Oh.
And you can't get your corpse back. So there was a little bit more resurrection sickness right there.
Ouch. But dying though, you could open up Netflix and
there you go.
So I saw a lot of movies while I was on a vacation last week in Williamsburg. I saw the Spider-Man Far From Home, Secret Life of Pets 2, and Toy Story 4. All great movies. Highly recommend all of them. I don't want to get deep into any of them because there's a lot of like spoilers and stuff like that. But we need something to do to get out of the heat and humidity. I mean, it was 90 plus. And Williamsburg, I've found out, is on a peninsula. It is muggy. One of the people in Williamsburg said it's like being inside of a dog's mouth in the summer. I'm like, okay. And definitely ate a lot of popcorn and burgers at the movie tavern. So best place to go if you ever want food and stuff like that. If you have a movie tavern near you, oh, delicious. They have food coming to you and stuff like that. And when I was out in Williamsburg, I got to meet Ian / Habant, which is Kara's husband. Really cool dude. And I'm going to have them on this show in October. It's always fun meeting people in real life. I think last March when I was out there, I kept forgetting Ali was over in Colorado. Otherwise, I would have said something so we could, because I found out that it was actually at a pizza place. And they're like, oh, I won't tell Ali that. Yep. And over the last few weeks, a lot has happened with me and WoW since the last Around the Table segment back in episode 11 for the E3 special. My 4th iron Nautiloa died to kobolds in a mine Luckmadon, so I started my 5th iron, a Taran Paladin named Moonster. It's up to level 16 over in Duratar. Caught up on 8.2 War Campaign, because I had to get the Gnome Heritage Armor. It's amazing with the goggles on the head. And Fraz is now up to eye level 389, so Heart of Azeroth is 47, so I'm definitely behind, but irons and alts. And I got the Explore Mechagon and Explore Nightstar achievements. So right now my reps for Pathfinder are at Honored for Warblades and Rustbolt at Friendly. So I'm close. I figured that I'm probably maybe a couple days to a week away if I hit it hard every day.
You can get
I was over in there earlier with I got to finally go to the alternative Mechagon. So really cool.
Oh, that's right, with Chromie and her where the bad guys.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I hope we get to see more of that, because I think that was still be cool. Like as we go forward to see more of Chromie showing alternative timelines. I love that stuff.
There's actually something you can make at the what's his name, Pascal?
Yeah,
the crafting area where you can actually make it and teleport to that alternate timeline whenever you want. There's actually anywhere between 1 to 3 more daily quests over in the alternate every day.
Wow. Should make that thing, because I just got that blueprint. Yeah,
I don't know how to make it off the top of my head, but I make sure I keep a couple of them on me at all times.
Smart, because I said now with the dailies, I didn't know every day, so I'm gonna have to get that.
It looks like you're determined to get an iron challenge tune up there
one day, because Cap was saying
one day
iron sharpens iron, except if you're Frazley, then you made a glass.
I actually started my own. I started to run a shaman.
How are you enjoying it?
It's definitely a challenge. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I made a shaman, and I'm currently at, I think, level 18.
Nice.
Tooling around Westfall and hitting Murlocs.
Oh, and at least they don't have classic mechanics. Oh, the Murlocs in Classic were even harder than they are now. But I think it's time for us to head back in time. I want to see, how did you get into gaming?
I've been video gaming since I was 7 years old.
Wow.
About 30 years now. My cousin had an Atari 2600.
Ooh.
I remember playing Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Pitfall on that. But even before that, my dad owned an arcade when I was a baby. And he'd tell me all the time about how he would take me and hold me in his arms, and I'd just be slapping at the buttons and giggling maniacally. You could probably say I got my start gaming when I was an infant. But I think my earliest memory gaming on my own was Christmas when I was 8 or 9 years old. My grandpa got me a Nintendo Entertainment System, and I was playing on this little 8-inch black and white TV, playing Super Mario Brothers with my face about 4 inches from the screen because I couldn't see it otherwise. My grandpa behind me grumbling that I'm going to burn my eyes out like that.
It always amazes me now, like, I think I heard 65-inch is now the average for American consumers.
We have a 72-inch.
Ooh.
Hanging from our wall. It's just a beautiful, beautiful screen.
Do you ever game on that?
Oh, yeah. I got a PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and then an NES and an SNES Classic all hooked up to it right now.
That is awesome. So everybody, we're having a game time over at Allie's house.
Everybody's welcome. Come on over.
So I want to ask about the arcade. So how long did your dad own the arcade?
Well, he had it right around the time I was born, and I think he sold it when I turned 4. When he married my stepmom. He had it for about 4 years, maybe 5. I'd have to ask him to get clarification. But it was a pretty big arcade. He had about 15 different titles in it, 15 different cabinets, including a Donkey Kong machine that doubled as like a table.
Oh, that's cool.
He did say that it was a hangout for the Denver Mafia. Yeah. When he was a kid, he was dating a girl whose father owned a Chevrolet dealership. It was kind of a front for the Denver Mafia. And he told me a story about how one day he almost got made.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. But the Mafia, some of the younger members would come and hang out at the arcade, and they trusted my dad to be very tight-lipped about the things he heard.
Wow. Before the Mafia tries to come after us, how did you get into Blizzard and World of Warcraft?
Well, the first Blizzard game I played was the original Diablo. Now, of course, from there, I went to Diablo 2, and I played that with my friends pretty extensively. Got into the ladders and all that stuff. But I picked up World of Warcraft right after the pre-patch for Burning Crusade dropped.
Okay.
So that was, 2006?
I think so, yeah.
And it was one of my roommate's friends who told me about it. Previous to that, I've been playing MMOs as far back as Asheron's Call.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So I went from Asheron's Call to EverQuest to Dark Ages of Camelot to City of Heroes. I kind of fell out because I didn't know about World of Warcraft really at that point because I was focusing most on console gaming. But my roommate's friend told me about World of Warcraft and said it was a lot like EverQuest, but it was easier than EverQuest. And yeah, he was describing classic World of Warcraft being easier than EverQuest, and it really was.
Yeah.
He tried to get me into it by saying you can be a big orc with a big axe. And of course, I didn't want to play an orc. I wanted to play an elf. So my first character I rolled up was a night elf hunter.
Nice.
And I noobed it up as a night elf hunter. It's all hunter loot.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's hunter loot. Yeah, and transmogs, you don't have to worry about, we'll just go to our transmog library.
But I've been playing World of Warcraft ever since then. I don't think my subscription has lapsed for longer than 6 months.
Wow. I definitely can't say that. I had a couple years breaks, so I definitely admire the people who have stayed in long term. What is your play style in WoW?
Like, what do you mean play style? Like, what kind of class? What kind of role?
Yeah, and like, are you like casual, hardcore, raiding?
I'd say I'm a casual raider. I'm sure Ali's talked about our guild, Kindred Embraced, how we dabble in raids, and we've kind of ramped it up a little bit as we've gone. Tried our hand at heroic and put together kind of a core raid group. But I'm by no means hardcore. If I can't play, I don't worry about it too much. If I want to play something else instead of playing World of Warcraft, I'll do that. I typically focus on DPS, but I also have a monk that I like to tank on. Don't ask me to heal because everybody will die.
If Ali's with you, then at least there's heals.
She's my pocket healer. It was meant to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Right now I'm playing a rogue, but I kind of bounce back and forth between my rogue and my monk. So I like melee.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, like, I'm enjoying ranged on my hunter, but I still like that being in the thick of stuff. Usually, I just gotta watch out. Like, as you know, being too close. Like, I remember with Gul'dan, I had to be on the behind Gul'dan because if I was in front, those sides and stuff like that, and I would wipe our raid. And I'm constantly the one that's like, I'm trying to get too close. I can't get close enough because there's damage stuff around him.
Oh yeah, the green stuff on the ground. Don't stand in the fire.
Yep. I have GTFO as the add-on, so that way at least it tells me if I'm in the fire.
I'm running in that one too.
It's great, and like even like in Mechagon, it's been helpful because it's like telling me, "Hey, get out of here, get out of here." I'm like, okay, good.
Oh, exactly.
So, what would you say has been the best thing that's happened to you since you started playing video games and/or World of Warcraft?
Well, if I'm going to be sappy right now and say, finding a life partner who also plays video games.
Absolutely,
one of the things that she and I bonded over. But honestly, becoming financially independent and being able to basically buy whatever console, whatever game I want.
Not having to go to any parent saying, "Hey, can I buy this? Can I buy this?"
Yeah, I learned a life lesson when I was 12 on my Nintendo 64. They had just come out with Star Fox 64 in the Rumble Pack for the controller, and I wanted that really bad. And my stepmom wouldn't buy it for me. And she said, if you want it, you need to get a job and buy it yourself. I went and I got a job bussing tables for a Mexican restaurant, cleaning them off and clearing dishes and stuff like that. Ended up working up all the money I needed, and it was $99.95. And with tax, it came out to be like $104. And my stepmom was nice enough to cover the tax that I didn't have because I had $100 with me. And that was the first time in my life that I realized, A, the value of a dollar, and B, if I had my own money, I could buy whatever video games I wanted.
And wow, $100 for a Rumble Pack. I'm looking at this controller, which was like 40 to 60, and it has Rumble in it. that is insane.
Now they're standard.
Yeah.
The controller itself is only usually about $60.
Wow. I remember getting the Rumble Pack. Now, my parents got that for me when I got the N64 for Christmas, so I didn't know how much it was, but I'm like, wow. The more I hear about that and like Legos, the more I wish I'd appreciated it more.
Legos are ridiculously expensive these days, especially now. I mean, when I was a kid and I'd ask for a Lego set and my parents would get irritated with me for asking for that and being like, you not know how expensive that is. And it's like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Now I do.
Well, like theme parks, we've been to Disney World a few times, and I'm like, that was expensive. The food, yeah.
It's not just places like Disneyland. I know here in Denver we have Elitch Gardens. A ticket to Elitch Gardens is $49, I think, not including parking, not including the water park if you want to go in the water park.
Yeah.
The food is like $10 a meal, and one of the places we stopped at in Breckenridge was this adventure park up there. And those tickets were $90 a pop.
Ooh.
And it didn't have any like automated rides or anything. It had an alpine slide. It had a mountain coaster. It had zip lining. And boy, was that an adventure in and of itself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just the price of things.
Yeah.
You just didn't realize as a kid, and I do now.
Even like when we went to Williamsburg, the cost for things in like the taverns or like even the passes was, it adds up. I mean, ooh.
Still fun though.
Yeah. And something that's fun. I mean, I don't know the joy of it because I've not met that person yet, but the fun of you becoming Mr. Ali. So how did Ali and you meet?
Internet, believe it or not. There was, I think they've since shut down. There was a dating website like Match.com or eHarmony, but it was specifically for people like us. It was called Geek to Geek.
Oh,
I had hopped on there. I think I'd spent about 3-4 months on it, trying to find somebody because I was lonely. I dated a few women before I met Allie, but we came across each other's profiles. I recall she sent me a wink, which is like sending a rose on the other one, saying she was interested. So I sent her a wink back. Because at the time, I didn't have a membership anymore. I had the free trial, which meant people can message you, but you can't message them. So, yeah, Allie's saying it shut down a while ago. She winked me, I winked her back. She winked me back, I winked her back. I think we winked each other back about 3 times before I said, oh, wow, this girl's really interested in me. I'll pony up the $15, give myself a silver membership so we could talk. So we talked for about a month, I think, on that before we actually dated for the first time. Because I'd run into a couple of people on that website where after a week of talking back and forth, I'm like, I want to meet you. Let's get together. And they'd be like, I'm out. And then they just stopped talking to me. So I was a little skittish about that, but she agreed. Yeah, at the time, Allie couldn't afford the $15. So it goes without saying that I'm glad I did that. But we met. Previously, I wasn't a believer of love at first sight. But it was June 21st. And we decided to meet at a local Italian restaurant called Johnny Carino's. And I'm sitting on the bench waiting for her to show up. And I'm sitting there, I'm wearing a nice black button-up shirt and a pair of shorts because it's hot. And I see her walking up and my heart stopped. And I knew right there, right then, that she was the one.
that's awesome.
We dated for a while. That first date, we sat in the restaurant till about 9:30. Then we could tell that the wait staff was kind of like, you need to go. Get out of the restaurant. Because we'd been in there for about 4 hours at that point. And I looked at her and I said, you want to go for a walk? So we spent about the next 2 hours walking around a park that was nearby. I never believed in kissing on the first date. But I worked up what courage I had and I asked her if I could kiss her at the end of the evening. And she said yes. From there, we dated for a while and we emailed and texted. Then she had to go to Arizona about a month and a half after that. And she said she was going to be out of contact for a little bit, but she'd check her emails. At that point, I told her that I thought I was falling in love with her. We dated for about a year. And then I was actually going to propose on our 1-year anniversary of dating, but she pulled out her surprise first. And at the time, she wasn't making a lot of money. So she saved up, she saved and scrimped in between paying on her own student loans and rent and groceries and stuff. And she took me to a really fancy restaurant. So I decided I was going to put off my proposal until the next day. And then the next day we went up to the mountains and I had this plan. I was going to take her down this path that we had visited once or twice. And I was going to propose. And then I completely forgot everything I was going to say. I didn't even get down on one knee. I was so nervous. I just kind of held out the ring and I said, will you marry me? And she said yes.
Wow.
The ring I used to propose was the ring that my dad used to propose to my mom. And serendipitous enough, it didn't need to be resized at all. It fit Allie's finger perfectly.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Almost like it was meant to be or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a speech prepared and everything, and when I got to that point, I got so nervous that I just completely forgot everything I was going to say.
I love that.
Thank you.
What is something about Allie that you love the most?
Hard to pick one thing. Honestly, if I did have to pick one thing, it'd be her strength. She's a very strong person. She's been through some stuff in her life, and she's still here, and she's still soldiering on.
Yeah, I definitely admire that about Allie. I mean, just always seems to have a smile. I mean, even on rough days, has a smile.
If I had to pick a second thing, it'd be her heart. She's got a very big heart. And, it goes without saying that she's absolutely beautiful, too.
As a friend, I can agree with that, too. I don't want to make you jealous, so I'm just saying that.
Oh, I don't get jealous. She can attest to that.
Allie's amazing. Allie's been an amazing friend and just been an amazing person of encouragement.
I'm a very lucky man.
What is some advice you would give to someone looking to enter a relationship of their own?
It's going to sound cliche and tacky, but there's somebody out there for everybody. If you don't take the shot, you're never going to know. If you're interested in somebody, ask. The worst thing that they're going to do is tell you no. just go for it.
Because if he had never taken that 15,
Yep. If I had never ponied up that $15, I probably never would have met Allie.
it's always amazing in life, those risks.
There's that risk versus reward. Some of the biggest risks come with the best rewards. And then, my grandpa told me once, he said, I'm sorry, Allie, all women are crazy. The trick is finding a woman who's crazy that you can actually live with.
Right. What my grandpa said too.
So fortunately, Allie's crazy is really easy to live with.
And Allie has a void side to them as well. And rumors are that Allie has the gift of N'Zoth on their forehead.
She still has it on her forehead. I don't think she's ever going to get rid of it until they take it from her.
But I hear, though, you have Allie in your life.
Yes.
But I hear that you've got another love in your life. A girl named Amy, a sporty and modified model. Now, for anybody listening, we are, of course, talking about a car. I want to make sure that's clear for anyone listening. So tell me a little about Amy. What was she like?
Fast and pretty. Unfortunately, I don't own her anymore. I miss having that car. But I had probably dumped way too much money into modifying it. I think at last check, it was about $18,000 into modifications. And at last check, when I last had it on a dynamometer, I had about 360 horsepower at the rear wheels.
Wow.
But yeah, I ended up having to trade her in because I missed 3 days of work in 1 month because I had racing springs on her. And she had about 1 3/4 inches of ground clearance, about 3.5 centimeters. So whenever we got that much snow or more snow, because that does happen here in Colorado, she would turn into a snowplow. I wouldn't be able to get out of my parking lot, and I'd have to call into work. Eventually, my boss told me, he said, if you keep calling into work because of this, you're going to get in trouble. So I had to make the decision to trade her in and get another car. And at the time, we couldn't afford 2 car payments, so I had to make some sacrifices, and I miss her so much.
I reminded of like Tim Allen and like Home Improvement, or like look at the car from Grease.
Yes, Grease Lightning.
Yeah, come on, Grease Lightning. Dun, dun, dun. How did you get into a passion for cars?
I honestly don't know. I think that came from my childhood too, because my dad and I, the very first car that I drove was a 1979 Buick LeSabre. It had a big old V8 in it, but it also weighed 6,000 pounds. It was really heavy. And my dad decided one day that he was going to have a little bonding exercise with me, and he and I were going to start building that car. And we modified the engine. We ended up taking the existing engine out and putting in a Pontiac 454 big block, putting a Holley 4-barrel carburetor on it, black paint, took all the chrome off of it, and the thing ended up being, imagine a brick with a lot of horsepower. It's just really heavy, not very aerodynamic, but really fast. I think every time I got a new car, I wanted to recapture that, and I'd always modify it. I've only owned 2 cars now that I haven't done anything to, one of which being the car I replaced Amy with, and then my current car.
What are you driving now?
Well, right now I'm driving a 2019 Hyundai Kona Limited. So it's got a little 1.6-liter turbo engine in it, but it still gets 35 miles to the gallon, which is great because my commute is about 30 miles to and from work.
And just because I'm a tech nerd, does it have like CarPlay or Android Auto?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It's got a 7-inch touchscreen entertainment. It came with an upgraded sound system, so it's got a really nice sound system with a nice thumpy bass. Power everything except for the passenger seat, which is a little odd. I thought the passenger seat would have power, but it doesn't.
weird.
The driver's seat does. The windows are powered. It's got heated seats. It's got heated rearview mirror. It's got heated windshield wipers and heated steering wheel, which is great.
Especially good for Colorado with all the cold.
Because it does get cold here.
Yeah, my parents lived in Colorado for a while, and they said, yeah, the winters from them were awful.
Well, they can.
Yeah, some can be okay. Were you out there during the horrible flood a couple years ago?
I wasn't in the area that got flooded. But yeah, I mean, I've lived in Colorado my entire life.
Okay.
Yeah, the flooding happened north of where we are.
Okay. We were down there right after the flooding, and it was awful getting around. I mean,
Washed out bridges and roads. And
yeah. And then like we had to sometimes go on some like mountain roads because the main roads, and like I felt awful for like hearing about like there was one town that was just gone after that flood.
Alt or Windsor, one of the two. Or maybe I'm thinking about one of the tornadoes they hit. Yeah, we get some crazy weather out here in Colorado.
Alter Windsor sounds right. It had a T in its name.
Yeah, it might be Alt. Which, fun fact, Alt stands for a unique little town.
Oh.
Mhm.
So speaking of tornadoes, a very bad segue. What is the fastest speed you've ever driven? And don't worry, this is only being broadcasted live on Twitch and being put into recording forever.
It was when I had Amy. Amy was a Hyundai Genesis, by the way. I was on my way to go visit my mother, my biological mother, and she lived way up north in a little town called Red Feather Lakes. And there's a highway, Highway 14, that runs between Fort Collins and Red Feather Lakes. And it goes down into a valley, and it's completely flat, completely level, and it goes for about 15 miles. Well, this was right after I had finished putting the last modification on Amy that I ever did, and I wanted to see what she could do. I opened it up, dumped the clutch, and next thing I know, I'm looking down and my speedometer's reading 170 miles an hour.
Wow.
And let me tell you, that was frightening. It wasn't fun, especially not in that situation. There's actually an effect where, I don't know what it's called, but the faster you're going, things start to stretch and your vision starts to blur the faster you go. That was happening.
Wow.
But 170 miles an hour, I can tell you, my heart was pumping.
I bet. And like trying to control that, trying to like when I get in fast speeds, I've gone at 70, 80, and even there, one move of the wheel.
I've taken my car to the track a few times, the drag strip. There's one up in Louisville, and it's an actual like racetrack, like a Formula One track. It doesn't take much when you're doing speeds, even 60, 70 miles an hour for something to go horribly wrong. But it's so exhilarating.
Oh, I bet. And then speaking of exhilarating, I bet you have a fantasy of what's your dream car?
1969 Mercury Cougar XR7.
Oh, yeah.
Always wanted one.
That looks amazing. Now you're going to get like the hydraulics and you're going up and down like doom, doom.
Oh, I'm not going to ghetto the car.
Okay. In the summer, just going around.
Maybe even get a convertible if I can do that, top down.
Yeah.
That was the first Ford vehicle, I believe, that had the sequential turn signals. So when you turn it on, it had 3 bars on the brake light. It would flash the inward, the middle, and then the outside, and then it'd turn all off. Then it'd do the middle, inward, outside, then it'd turn them all off.
And I've got a link in the show notes to the car.
They're beautiful cars.
What color would you want?
Black or midnight blue.
Oh.
With a cream-colored interior, because we get snow, we get tornadoes, we get floods. We also get really sunny days that are really, really hot.
Yes. I've had black cars and been in black cars, like interiors. Yeah. You want a nice interior.
Hot car, hot interior.
But on those nights when it's snowy, that's the perfect time to gather a bunch of friends into a house and delve into a dungeon and fight some dragons. So my source also told me that you are into Dungeons and Dragons. So how did you get into Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, that goes back to when I was in high school. One of my friends just kind of pulled me aside one day and said, "We're going to play a game." I was like, okay. And he sat me down and he explained the rules. It turned out to be 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. It hooked me. It's basically a bunch of teens or adults gathering around and playing pretend. It's so much fun.
I've never played it. I've seen it played, and I love the thought that goes into it of creating these universes and going up against friends. What is one of your favorite memories?
Way too many to pick from. The one that makes me smile the most is I was the DM. The first time the role-playing group I put together actually finished an adventure. They got to the end, they were successful, none of the characters had died, seeing the satisfaction and smiles on all their faces, knowing that I, as the DM, as the storyteller, did a good job.
You crafted the story. That's one of the things like I love hearing the Scruffy Druid on Loot Optional talking about their adventures in D&D. They wrote a campaign, and they had so much fun that people were enjoying their campaign and stuff like that.
I'm fairly creative as it is. I've drawn before. I try to write when I can. I like to create things. Being a DM allows me to flex my creativity and, share that with people who I know aren't going to overtly critique it or make fun of me for it.
It's nice having those people who can be supportive, and it probably makes the anxiety go down a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I hear that you've recently started a campaign, and you are the dungeon master for it.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the role of being a DM?
Well, honestly, it wasn't by choice the first time. Most people want to play. Being a dungeon master is a lot of responsibility because the work of putting together the game is on your shoulders. I discovered one time, my friends, it was in high school again, when everybody was going to get together and play, but nobody wanted to be the dungeon master. Everybody wanted to play. I realized at that point that if nobody stepped forward to do it, we weren't going to get to play. So I said, all right, why not? I'll give it a shot. And fortunately, we had a pre-made adventure at that point called The Temple of Elemental Evil. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a fairly infamous pre-made adventure. It tends to kill a lot of players. So I had that, and I started guiding these players through it. Like I said, I get fairly creative at times, and I started interjecting voices and personalities to some of the NPCs and, getting happy when the players were having fun and succeeded. And at that point, I was hooked. I don't know if I could ever go back to just being a player.
Kind of a rush.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I know it's slightly different, but I can kind of relate. Like as a podcast host, it is fun putting it together and like seeing it being crafted.
Very similar. Putting together something that you created, putting something out there and letting people see it. And, even if it's an audience of people watching your show or a group of friends who are experiencing a story you put together for them. There's still that rush of knowing you created it and people are enjoying it.
Yeah. And hearing that feedback from your players makes you feel really good.
Definitely.
What would you say is the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome?
Finding time to get everybody together, especially now. In all the years I've been a dungeon master and trying to put together a group of people to play the game, especially now that most of my friends are all adults with careers and families, finding a night where we can all get together and have enough time to actually play. Is probably the biggest challenge.
How many players are in your group?
Right now we have 4.
Okay, yeah.
We have Allie, we have my cousin, Zach, we have Zach's wife, Emma, and we have my best friend, Tony. Allie might have mentioned him as our raid leader, Azeroth, or Tellianus.
Yes.
He's playing a paladin. My cousin Zach is playing a ranger. His wife is playing a rogue. Allie is playing a newbie bard.
Whoa! I hope, Allie, that there's singing in the future. I mean, I can give you singing lessons if you need it.
I would pay for that.
Allie the bard on an adventure with friends.
I think they're having fun. They haven't told me they're not yet, so I'm taking that as a good sign.
Now that you mentioned it, I remember hearing Allie talk about being a bard in a campaign. So it sounds like I was having a good time.
Honestly, she's doing a good job.
Nice! So what is a piece of advice you'd give to someone looking to be a DM?
You need to be a little schizophrenic in order to do a good job at building your world. You could easily just read your characters' voices in just your normal voice, but it always brings the world to life better when you at least try to give them a different personality. Give it a nice dwarven accent if you're going to be a dwarf. Make your voice, high-pitched and squeaky if you're going to be a gnome or a halfling. Try to make it softer if you're going to be voicing a woman. Gravelly if you're going to do an old man. It doesn't have to be good, just as long as you give it effort.
Like it helps the players get in their head.
Oh, exactly. Take a page out of J.R.R. Tolkien. You can never over-describe something. Since everything is played in your players' imaginations, the more description you give when you're describing something, the better it's going to be for them to visualize it.
They can smell it. They can taste it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, describe everything. I mean, there's also a DM trick where, for instance, you enter a room. The room is made out of cobblestone. To the right, you have a bed that's slightly unmade with a nightstand next to it. On the wall, opposite of the door you enter, is a torch. It's burning brightly. It's got a golden sconce. The wood looks like it's worn. On the left wall, you see a picture. So what I did right there is I described the torch in more detail than anything else in the room. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring my players' attention to that torch. So that way they know they want to go investigate the torch. Maybe if they pull the torch, it'll open a secret passage. Maybe they'll go investigate the torch and find out that the sconce holding the torch is actually made out of gold. And there's their treasure. The secret is to highlight the things you want them to pay attention to.
Smart. So I think I'm going to pull that torch down because I need to look at some questions from the community. Looking at this paper, I was hearing that you were DM, so I decided to ask the community, if you've delved into the Dungeons and Dragons, what is your funniest tale?
Garasar of Technically PvP said, I was playing a fighter/warrior. I charged at a monster, fumbled, charged past, and ran off the cliff, then somehow stabbed myself in mid-air before landing below with 1 or 2 hit points left. My friends and I still laugh about it 25 years later, and that is pretty funny.
Oh, that is. Sounds like something that I would do. And Spaz says they'd have to go look through their wrap-up doc, but they can say that there are many from their players. So Spaz is a DM.
Artie says, we played Werewolf, and earlier in the campaign, I had issues with combat because of my stats and equipment, so the DM was friendly and gave me a rifle. Which helped me in combat, but it also had the unfortunate outcome that the very next battle I failed my weapons roll and ended up shooting and deadly wounding my teammate. We did win the battle, but I was the only man standing at the end. The others wounded, passed out, but still alive. Also in Werewolf, not so much a fail, but we got ambushed and I ended up with a silver sword through my shoulder. Got hit in the front and it stuck out through the back. I ended up running backwards into an enemy and impaling him with the sword. Flame Flash said, sounds like a howling good time. That was a good one.
I had to add the button. And Sai says they're running a game with their kids, and their son rolled a 1 while looting a corpse. Sai gave him a turd in a box, and they said that they failed as a DM because they tried to steer him away from looting due to his sister already looting. However, he used that turd to win the next encounter, and it was hilarious.
I can only imagine.
Any Dungeon Dragon that has turds in a box sounds like a win.
So this next one is actually mine. Way back in 97, I was playing with a group of classmates in high school. We had a 5th player who wanted to join us, and she wanted to play a cleric. So in order to get her into the game, I set up a classic rescue the damsel scenario to induct her in, wherein the other party at large had to rescue her, basically adventure from there. So they decided to take up a position, out of sight and have the ranger basically snipe the guards with his bow. Well, a series of critical failures later, they killed the cleric who was trying to join the game, and the guards were completely unharmed.
They failed that turn, I take it.
Oh yeah. In D&D, if you roll a 1, in 2nd edition, it was called a critical failure, and it was up to the dungeon master to decide what actually happened. So I basically rolled a chance to see who he actually hit, and it turned out both of the critical failures he rolled, I rolled on the chance dice that he hit the cleric instead. And when he went to go roll damage, the 2 arrows did more than her hit points and ended up killing her.
Ooh.
I fixed it. The guards ran away because they didn't understand what was happening, and one of the other players could cast Resurrection, and they brought her back to life. So we managed to get her back into the game, but it was a hilarious situation where, talk about friendly fire.
Yes. Next time they need the healing, the cleric will be like, nope, not going to heal you. And Alessandra says that my elf ranger without fail would shoot the cavalier's war steed in the butt instead of the enemy and fail every enchantment resist save. But the barbarian's dice wouldn't let him land a hit on a female. So when he picked up the cursed mace, it took me 5 hours to subdue him. And they said that was the 2nd edition with a 1st edition barbarian allowed by the DM. So he had double HP, which was already outrageously high. He did get beaten up by a village cook with a frying pan once. Nice. They said that their biggest fail would be the last surviving party member in Temple of Elements Evil, which you mentioned earlier. They were so terrified that they forgot what the door marker on the map was and went right past it. And then their best DM fail was they let their party make their own magic item from a Dragon Magazine's article. They actually succeeded in making a wand of chicken summoning, then spent the entire next game ignoring the plot to go scam villagers at cockfights.
Sounds like what my players would do at times. Do everything they could to avoid the story I was trying to present to them and go do their own thing.
Oh. So even D&D can go off the rails.
Situation can turn out very foul.
Ah! You got me a facepalm.
I do.
That was great. Do you ever make Allie facepalm?
Every day.
Yes. And Allie's going ... in chat. So perfect. So I'd say that was a perfect episode. And I want to thank you for joining me on FrazlCast tonight.
My pleasure, Frazley. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's like we're friends now after this episode.
Absolutely. Happy to call you my friend.
Oh, thank you. And likewise, pinky promise of friendship.
There we go.
Nice. For audio listeners, we just did a pinky on the webcams. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, I hang out on Twitter at SniperFrogDX. I also play World of Warcraft. My battle tag name is Sniperfrog, number 1722, if you want to send me a friend request.
Do you realize how close we are? Mine's Frazley, number 1711.
Wow.
That is, and we both make Allie facepalm. Wow, that's amazing. Hey, Madros just telling me about these amazing gnomes in Mechagon. Do you want to head over there and try to find the names so then we can make Allie facepalm at all the names?
Yes.
We're heading off to Mechagon, everybody.
Activating customized orchestrated transporter.
Well, I am over at Mechagon. I'm looking for some puns to tell Madros and Allie, and I'm working on dailies for the rep so I can get Pathfinder Part 2. Before I do that, though, it's time for some things to finish out the show.
Let's look at what has been happening in the community.
Awesome, let's do that. I don't know how Epicinsanity and you show up every single week, no matter when and where I'm at. So Alessandra told me about the classic dueling tournaments that are alternating between the Horde and the Alliance. These are being run by Tips Out Baby. You can find their channel at twitch.tv/tipsoutbaby. They were doing these during the classic beta. They had some shenanigans happen, like some Alliance players were trying to interrupt the tournaments with some PvP battles. These tournaments included cash prizes and big names, and Alessandra told me that Tips Out Baby, that's a phrase I never thought I'd say, and I've said it 3 times, has stated these will be in Launch Classic. It makes me think twice before declining due request if there's cash involved. This tweeted out about the Keystone Masters, a Twitch channel with the description, Our channel streams Mythic Dungeon content with the aim to improve community esports. We're currently testing out multiple formats, including but not limited to best of 1 out of 3 friendlies, 4 of 8 team tournaments, and time trials. And I reported last week on method parting ways with Red Bull for the race for World First, and Pete and I discussed it a bit on the most recent stories around Azeroth. Red Bull on Thursday announced that Limit and Pieces will be featured in their coverage. And Method has announced that guilds from the US, EU, and Asia will be joining them in their coverage as well. The guilds include Alpha, GT Hung, Skyline, Aversion, From Scratch, Vodkas, and Big Dumb Guild. This race for World First will be televised. And Kaden retweeted a tweet by Wildhead about the guild to clear a World First kill of heroic Queen Azara. And I agree with Kaden that the guild who cleared it, Strawberry Puppy Kisses, needs to be the guild that wins the World First Mythic race. Imagine reporting on that name every time. That would be so awesome.
Make way for King Magnet. Here comes the King Magnet.
Thank you to Jay the Tavern Bard for letting me play that clip. I have a link to the full video in the show notes to this parody cover and machinima of King Ali from Aladdin. It's a collaboration with Jesse of the Lost Codex, Silver Latomi, and Adam Swagnees. Amazing job, and I look forward to more awesome videos. And I have posted a Twitter video of their rendition of Do You Wanna Do a Keystone? It's a parody of the song from Frozen. And I couldn't let this one go. I've got a link in the show notes to this video, and it is hilarious, and I love it. And Warcraft Stats, who you should be following, I have them on mobile notifications for each of their puns. Well, they tweeted out about a 12-minute video of World of Warcraft running in Unreal Engine 4. This is made by Daniel L., and who, according to Kotaku, has spent years recreating Azeroth in the Unreal Engine. The video includes Grizzly Hills, Elwyn Forest, Duskwood, Westfall, and Durotar. It's unreal. Wildhead has been doing a monthly collaboration with Novel87 on the lore of World of Warcraft. This month is about the story of Nashtar. If you want to find out why we are fighting in this zone, other than to get Pathfinder Part 2, definitely check these out. My friend and fellow gnome, Pommy Tappet, has reported that Blizzard has fixed the external API for accessing the pet collection after a long time of waiting. So pet websites should now work. Andrea Toyes, the senior casting and voice director of Blizzard, has shared an interview by Crispin Freeman, who talked with our beloved Scroll Sage Nola, aka Marianne Strassner. A turtle made it to a podcast. Speaking of podcasts, I've got 3 podcasts to talk about on this episode. World of Warcraft celebrates 14 years. That, my friend, is an amazing accomplishment. Michael, I had a blast talking with you on FrazlCast a few episodes back. I cannot wait to do it again. You're 12 years older than me in podcasting years, so my hat is off to you for podcasting after all these years. Where will I be in 14? Wow, you are one of Ali's favorite podcasts, and the reason that they started podcasting. You know, another of Ali's favorite podcasts is Taverncast, and they are returning. They just announced on Friday that they will or have returned as of Monday, July 15th, when this show releases. And finally, Ali and Brandon are from Colorado. And one thing about Colorado is it seems to have amazing podcasters. As a new podcast called Rocky Mountain Blizzcast has launched. They're on episode 2. I'm excited to see some new podcasts in this amazing community. As Pat said last week, this world needs your voice. Our community is made up of gifted people. And that's why I love showcasing them each week in the From the Community section. And this community comes together to support those in need. We are almost through July, which means there are only a few more weeks to purchase the Pride Pin with the Blizzard Entertainment in Rainbow. The pin is $15, and proceeds through July 31st will go to the Trevor Project, which is the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ young people. Well, this has been another episode of FrazlCast. Thank you to Crunk and Spaz Weston, who sent in the congratulations on our 2-year anniversary. I am honored and excited that I've gotten to know you both through these podcasts. Shout out to Mikey, who said a great show making it happen. Keep on rocking. Shout out to DK Rice, who didn't know I had a podcast. It surprised me. I thought everyone knew I podcasted. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. I thought that if you follow my Twitter, you see all my podcasts that I do. They added this show to their rotation for their daily 2-hour drive. This is Smooth Fraz, here for your drive home. Sit back, keep your eyes on the road, and enjoy the ride. Traffic is backed up a bit. That's no problem, as you've got the Gnome Train. Shout out to Ali, who said it was an honor to be part of this. And Ali, it was an honor to have you be along for the ride. A shout out to Wookie Balboa, who just joined the LB Discord. They sent me a greatly needed word of encouragement. And shout out to Ro, who on episode 288 of Realm Maintenance. You're almost to 300, Ro. Ro, you said some very kind words about me and the show. I still think back to what you told me when I met you in September 2018. Keeping the focus on the community and not on me. Finding ways to still enjoy the game. Realm Maintenance gave me a chance, and it gives exposure to so many shows. It's how I found many of the podcasts I listen to now, and it's how I even became friends with Half a Report. I love hearing from podcasters on the show. You help inspire me to keep going, Ro. So thank you. And along with thanking those who have supported me with words of encouragement, I also like to thank those who have supported the show financially. Thank you to Michael of the Blue Recluse and the Genome Project and Nerd This Podcast. Thank you to Razurus. Thank you to Smashersaurus. Thank you to T-Crunk360. Thank you to Thorn of Lagging Balls and CTR, which was formerly BNN. And thank you to Zords the Goblin. If you want to support the show, please go to support.gnomepodcast.com. All of these could help supporting this labor of love. Well, I am Frazley, and you can find the show at gnomepodcast.com. So until next week, be awesome. Welcome to the Frazley Report, a short podcast by me, the Awesome Gnome, about the World of Warcraft. So the Midsummer Fire Festival is over. I was going to watch it, but then a horrible thunderstorm appeared in Stormwind, and they had to cancel the festivities. At least it didn't rain on the parade of people in the Murgle Parade, as many players were excited to show off the new Murloc pet you can acquire in the Bloodfin Village in Nazjatar. People also were at the parade to get early access to the new plush and mug that the gear store will start selling on July 9th. Some might say it's a peculiar thing to have a parade for, but stranger things have happened. Sentinels are relieved to hear that no hijinks happened during this festival, though there are rumors that Sylvanas may be eyeing to torch Thunderbluff. The officials are saying that they are calling her bluff. They said she would be forsaken to attack such a noble and peaceful city. One might say it would be a bane to her existence. Darkmoon Fair is back. People are getting their rep buffs and top hats to help with getting revered with the 2 new factions for flying. A goblin named Grizzak has set up new freezers selling some delicious pints of raspberry ice cream, one of the specialties of the Darkmoon Fair. Everything was sweet until a chilling discovery was made. Some individuals have taken to imitating a new challenge, and they open these pints and lick them and put them back. Ew! This has caused them to have to temporarily close these new freezers. Please, do not lick ice cream unless you plan to eat it. Season 3 of BFA launches tomorrow, July 9th, or the 10th if you're in the EU. Sorry, Pete. And Far From Home, the Mega Dungeon Operation Mechagon opens. I'm excited to see what this new dungeon has in store. And not one to be outshined, Queen Ashara will be opening their palace. Well, not totally opening it. We are kind of forcing our way in. But you'll be able to dive into normal and heroic difficulty starting tomorrow. Or Wednesday in the EU. Again, sorry, Pete. But you already have flying while I'm working to catch up. And we will know what happens next in the storyline as soon as the raid team clears normal. So very exciting times indeed. One word of caution. Azara has set up a vendor outside the raid to sell used bathwater. They saw the money and the profits that an online influencer was making from doing the same thing. And with all the damage to her palace, Azara decided to sell their own brand of used bathwater. Azara claims they can give you buffs for your raid, but our experts have researched this and the water does nothing except taste very funky. At the risk of making the Queen of Naga mad, please do not buy this bathwater. What is it with people licking ice cream and drinking used bathwater? I'd love to go back to simpler times. And we will be able to do that very soon. The WoW Classic Beta will be ending this Friday, July 12th. There will be one final stress test from July 25th to July 26th. We are getting ever closer to the launch on August 27th. And don't forget, you can reserve your classic names on August 13th. I'm excited to relive some of my youth. Well, my time has come and I must venture back out for the daily reset in Nazjatar. I'm working my way towards the Gnome Heritage Armor. So until next time, be awesome.
What's this?
Oh, hey, Reggie.
Hey, Tinko.
For Gnomeragon.
Yeah, for Gnomeragon. Found this thing, I think it's a radio? Kind of buried here. Amidst a big bag of old fortune cookies and...
That's weird. Does it work?
No. It's got a little light on it, but it's kind of flickering.
Well, here, let's hook it up to the generator. Worth a shot, right?
I'm getting something. It's starting to flicker. Give it more juice.
More juice coming up!
Oh, that's good. Hook it up to generators 2 and 3. Keep those going. Wait, I'm starting to hear something.
Yeah, I can hear it too.
Was that Coltrane? You can keep going. I'm hearing letters. It's spelling something. A-Z-E-R-O-T-H.
Azeroth?
Azeroth.
Second word is P-U-B-L-I-C.
Public.
Last word.
You gotta shut this down. Everything's overheating.
R-A-D.
Everything's falling apart. Oh my gosh.
Radio.
Azeroth Public Radio.
Wow. Is this a new podcast?
Yeah, it's a new show.
Well, when do you think it'll come out?
Who knows? I mean, it took Coltrane 5 years just to do this.
Azeroth Public Radio. Coming July 2019.
FrazlCast is a fan podcast that covers Blizzard games. We are not affiliated with Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. Views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own. Some of the art, music, and sound effects come from Blizzard games and are owned by Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. No copyright infringement is intended. The Gnome Train intro is by Allie of Dungeon Fables and All Things Azeroth, and the opening music is by Brandon T. Blaylock.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.
Someone's calling the voicemail line.
This is Investigation Division of Social Security Administration. Your Social Security number has been compromised.
Oh no!
There is an investigation going on. To speak to the officer, press 1.
You better go on. This might take a while.